2, 1. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
Dude, this is insane.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
You and I, we've known each other for a long time.
Right.
So we went to the same middle school.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. And then I think it was like like maybe 3 years ago or so that your music actually came up on my Spotify.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
your music came up on my Spotify, and I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then I found your music stuff on Instagram, and then maybe about 8 months ago, 9 months ago or so, I just saw more and more of you everywhere.
Yes, sir.
When did you really get serious about music?
So, I would say probably about 4 years ago was when I started really writing and then like putting things out on streaming platforms. Before that, I grew up playing music, grew up in band and in different instrumental performance groups and stuff like that. But prior to, I guess, about 4 years ago, I never had really tried to put music out for people to listen to. It was always kind of in ensemble form. So kind of, just started with GarageBand, just like using YouTube beats, putting them on there. I had like a Yeti microphone, I believe, that I got from Target or something like that. Just kind of used that. And then was just kind of going, laying covers, laying flows, things like that. So I ran into a few friends of mine, or my current producer now, Will, and he was actually one of the more instrumental people that kind of helped me put things on streaming platforms and kind of get them out into public space. So yeah, about that time, we started working together, had a few different collaborative efforts with some people in the city. And then after that, we started actually, putting things out for people to listen to, started to try to continue doing that at a pretty constant pace. And then we were able to kind of get some feedback, hear that people enjoyed what we were doing. So it was, kind of a push to kind of move forward in that area.
No, it's good. How close to the pandemic had you started? Like, did COVID already start? Was it like just before?
Yeah, just before, I want to say, before it kind of got really public knowledge. Like I said, I had been putting things out, kind of in college, but around the time of the pandemic was really when we were able to kind of accentuate focus on what was going on, use streaming platforms and use things like Instagram, Facebook, those type of things to kind of reach people. So definitely around the pandemic time, we were able to kind of rev up the amount of eyes that were seeing the things we were doing.
So you took advantage of the shut-in time.
For sure.
No, it's smart.
Sure.
What was collaborating with other people like in this city? What was it like when you first started compared to now?
It was interesting. I think trying to find individuals that kind of fit my style. I think we have a lot of talented individuals here, and we have a lot of different styles of music. So I was trying to be specific about how I approached working the style that I wanted to present. It's specifically R&B, kind of R&B smooth music. So for the most part, I wanted to kind of work inside of that dynamic. I really appreciate the formation of live music as well. So I really tried to work with live musicians. When I first started, that was kind of hard, just getting musicians that were able to not only perform live, but were also able to kind of travel and be flexible with rehearsals and things like that. So the past few months, I've actually been able to work with a lot of musicians that are those specific things, very flexible, very able to work with time constraints and then able to just kind of play. And we're really able to like perform at a high level because of that. But before it was difficult. It was a lot of just myself and my producer Will really kind of doing our own thing. We would work with people and kind of work on different collabs, but a lot of it was really in-house because we were trying to like work on the craft first and then kind of present it to everyone.
Well, that's a good way to go about it. I mean, because, and this is no disrespect to anyone that does music here in New Mexico, but we have a ton of musicians and we have a ton of people in the hip hop, R&B. I obviously I'm not in that world, but even being someone being outside of it, I see how many people there are. Not that I'm very educated, but no one comes to mind that has done a live performance with a big band behind them or like a real band behind them. So that is it's certainly, like you just outlined, it's not the easiest way, but it is probably one of the more unique and long-term benefit ways to separate yourself from the rest of everybody else.
I agree.
How recent has that been for you? So maybe like the last 6 to 9 months, you were saying that you were able to get people together that can do that type of stuff with you?
Yeah, really. So it kind of started, I want to say maybe June of last year. One of my friends, or one of the guys that's in the band now, Sloan, he hit me up. He's from Santa Fe, and he has this thing called the Flowdown. It's like a big, kind of like a jazz group thing, and it's just a lot of different musicians from all over the place just kind of come and perform. It's a real cool event. But from that, our collaboration kind of formed, and then I was able to perform at Juneteenth. And during that time, one of my good friends from Eastern New Mexico University, Will, he also worked with me. He's a musician as well, so he worked with me, and he had a few friends of his, and we were able to perform at that and headline that event.
That was here in Albuquerque, right? Yeah.
So yeah, it was at Civic Plaza. It was like the first time we had performed at a venue that size. So it was a pretty cool, just kind of taste of what we were able to do in front of a crowd. So from that, it really kind of started. So I would say about June, July of last year, and then we had a few more November, December, and then we're revving up for this year as well.
How many people were in attendance, do you think, at that Juneteenth performance?
I want to say that one was about 150 to 200.
I'm proud to announce that the podcast is now officially sponsored by the fine people over at Chop Chili Company. Guys, this is some of the best chili you can get here in the state of New Mexico, and they are online as well as in stores. They can be found at Smith's, Albertsons, Sprouts, John Brooks, and Lowe's Corner Market. They have 3 amazing flavors that you see here, and they also have frozen green chili that you can get online. Go on over to the website, chopchilico.com, and get yourself some amazing chili today. Podcast is now officially sponsored by the amazing people over at High Desert Relief, a premier herbal destination right here in the state of New Mexico. They have extremely well-trained and knowledgeable staff that are more than happy to help you find what you're looking for or try something that you maybe have never thought of. They have 2 locations here in Albuquerque, 1 in Santa Fe. All 3 will be listed right here and in the description of this episode. All 3 offering legendary products at absolutely legendary prices, including this awesome merch that they were so kind enough to gift me here. All of this can be found at all 3 of their locations. Again, big thank you to the guys over at HDR for supporting. Now back to the episode.
It's awesome
that we had. So it was definitely, like I said, it was the first time that we had ever performed for a group that size. So it kind of...
What were you used to before then?
Small, breweries, small venues, 50, 20, 50 people, very intimate, which is always a nice way to kind of hone in on your skill and really like work the crowd. But being able to play for the amount of people that we saw, and like we were under the lights, it was nighttime. It was, just a very ambiance type experience. So it was pretty cool.
Are there musician-based open mics in this city? Like, is that a thing?
The Flowdown is probably one of the ones that I would say is one. I haven't really heard of a whole lot of other ones, which is one of the things that we've kind of been talking about, because we have a lot of people, or I know a lot of people that I think would benefit from spaces like that,
or
from opportunities like that.
Everyone benefits from opportunities.
Yeah, so
that's how you weed out the people that are doing it for fun and the people that care about it.
Right.
Like,
right.
I mean, Jesus Christ, last night I was at Red Door for the comedy mic.
Okay.
I mean, it gets pretty weird anyway because it's Red Door, homeless people fly in and out, that type of stuff. But the worst of the homeless people that we've seen at Red Door is they just kind of just sit and have like a maniacal meth-fueled cackle, and then they just like walk away anyway. They don't cause trouble though. We never had one like yell at somebody or try to get physical. I've never seen that anyway. I'm sure it's happened. I've never seen that. Anyway, case in point, last night we were indoors. It's getting cold as shit outside, and so if the comic is here, the door's back here, and then like the rest of the brewery's that way. But then like there was a table right behind the comic, and it was 2 guys that were acting completely normal, but it was 2 guys and a girl, and the girl had to have been on mushrooms, had to have been on something, because she was just fucking with all the comics, saying stupid shit.
See.
And it got to the point where a couple of the comics, and then eventually including myself, had to like start telling us, hey, get the fuck out of here. Then the bartender had to come around and try to fight the bar. It got real dumb.
What?
It got really dumb. But my point is moments like that. I think one of the dudes that had gone up and gotten fucked with by the chick. I think that was his second time doing comedy ever.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so there's already like, maybe 15 people, 20 people total. And granted, most of them are comics anyway. Right. But, going up in a very small crowd like that, all tight together, and that's hard enough. Right. And then you add the variable of what if there is a fucking weirdo in there, right?
Right.
I think that, and again, this is not a slight, but I think that serves any entertainment industry. If you have the ability to go somewhere for free to practice your craft from other people that want to do the same exact thing as you,
right?
I mean, I think a lot of reality checks happen, both positive and negative.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm shocked that there's not any kind of space for that right now. I really am.
And I think that you brought up a really good point, just the fact that you're able to kind of see differences in the craft. You're able to as a individual who wants to be a part of this type of thing or wants to create for the right reasons, you are able to kind of hone in on your craft when you're around other creators. But for people who are just doing it for, self-aggrandizement, you're able to kind of see things that you may not bring to the table at that time. But I think it all in all, it creates a really solid musical atmosphere that I think Albuquerque, New Mexico specifically hasn't really seen a lot. Just being able to have high caliber creators, a lot of them in the same space, is not something that we're used to. It's happened a few times, but I think it's something that it definitely should happen a little more often.
No, I agree. And so as far as growth goes, are you finding more growth through streams or live performances? And the reason I ask is because, again, without the free experience and the free the very low barrier to entry to go do something like an open mic, without having that, the only way you get physical in-person exposure is being on somebody's show. And now that person has to take a risk on you where it's like, okay, let's say this person's been doing it under 6 years, under however long that whoever considers experience, right? So they're doing it under a certain amount of years. So we're going to put aside that this person may or may not be able to bring people to fill out a quarter of a room. Okay, let's remove that. Are they good?
Right.
How do we know they're good? Is this their first time? I don't know if I want to. You know what I mean? And so because obviously the live performance aspect is important to you, but are you finding more growth through that? Are you finding more important through social media and streaming? How do you combat, because on average, how many live performances, not even opportunities that you got booked for, but opportunities in general, are there in a calendar year, do you think?
Speaking specifically, I guess, from last year, I would say 8 to 15.
Okay, so
8 to 15.
Let's meet in the middle and say once a month.
Right.
So once a month, you're able to go and perform.
Right.
And let's say you get booked for 8 of those shows.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's just, again, meet them more, and let's make that a little more optimistic, right? 8 shows in a year, but nothing really to do in between that. You're practicing on your own, you're doing that kind of thing, but you need the immediate feedback, I would imagine, right?
Right.
So where are you finding more growth is happening for you since you've been really honing in on it?
So I think the past few months specifically I've seen a lot of growth with the live performances just because we've been kind of focused on those. Before that, though, I saw the majority of growth from streams and from social media. That was pretty much a primary form of providing people with the music. Also, we were making videos and stuff like that. So giving them visuals along with the music was the primary form. I think once we were able to kind of find the live instrumentation that we needed, we were able to push the live performances that we wanted to kind of push. We definitely rock with tracks a lot. We're starting to kind of formulate where we're using tracks and live performances. So we're doing a lot of kind of intricate work with the sounds and the details of the sounds. But I think it's kind of a little bit of both. Now that we have those pieces, we're starting to try to shift into more of a collective, I wouldn't say a collective view, but the way that a collective functions. So
For people who don't know what you're talking about, how would you define a collective?
So essentially a group of individuals that all bring specific things to the table, and then we all essentially work together for like a designed goal. For instance, my producer Will handles a large portion of like the production, the mixing, the mastering, making beats, and then like essentially when I'm going to record, he's doing all the detailed work with that. But then I have a few specific musicians that like specifically play keys, or they'll play drums, or they'll play guitar, or whatever the case may be. And then all of us are working for those specific things. I have like specific videographers that we're working with to do specific videos for all of the different music and album ideas that we're coming up with, because we're trying to like craft actual album ideas. And then we're also trying to work with some choreographers and try to have like actual performance things going on, so that there's legitimate experiences when we're presenting music to people. I think that's what we're trying to come up with, is like a very high caliber way to provide people with these musical experiences.
What's your barometer for what is good enough to make like what is legitimate, what is good enough to your standard?
So far, what it has been is just, and it's been weird because I guess we haven't really spoken about what, kind of makes the team, or like who we want to work with, but typically it's really just individuals who are doing it for the right reasons. A lot of times that comes from conversations like this, or comes from just like meeting and having, quality time with people and actually kind of seeing what they want to do. But a lot of times it's really just kind of meeting people. Most of the people that we're working with or have started to work with, we've met from other performances. So like we'll see them in a performance, we'll have a good time, and then from there we'll kind of branch out and create, new opportunities. But it really, I'm really down to work with anyone. I don't really have any problem with creating with anybody. So we always just try to like work within the bounds of the week, work within the bounds of what we have. And then anyone who's trying to put the best product forward, that's who we like generally want to rock with.
I mean, you have a standard 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
How do you find the time for all this?
Yeah. So myself and my producer, we typically work on Friday and Saturday, and like that's kind of how we do things. We'll typically create music almost every weekend. We'll at least finish a song or two almost every weekend, and then also during some weekends we'll have times where we'll go shoot videos or just like short visuals for Instagram or for different social media networks. But typically we'll try to condense it all into like a Friday, Saturday session. I do a lot of writing and a lot of like song formatting during the week, of course, where I'm working on, lyrics or whatever the case may be. But in the studio, like work when like a product is ready to be presented, it's typically like a Friday, Saturday session.
So you're making, when it's at its most productive, you're making about a song a week.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
And I only know that that's crazy from the other musical guests that I've had on. Right. That is insane. Like there's a really good documentary. It's called 7 Days to Air. It's about the South Park guys making episodes. How like way back in the day, they hand drew all their stuff and they had animations and stuff like that, obviously to do it. But they did one episode a week. Yeah, and it was from no concept to airing on Comedy Central. I think was realistically 5.5, 6 days. Yeah, yeah. So that how long did it take for you and your producer and really your team to really come together and get a routine and get a process that works so you can meet a deadline, and a self-imposed deadline too? Nobody's making you do that. Right. So how long did it take to get a routine down, do you think?
I think about the full extent that we've been working together, so about 4.5 years, from us understanding the kind of vibe that we wanted to create to being able to kind of share the music at a pace that's consistent, and then also being able to make it to the studio to record and get ideas out and get the writing done and stuff like that. When we first started it, we had a lot of sessions that were kind of party-esque, and we were staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning, and a lot of stuff going on in the studio. A lot of energy was just poured into like the atmosphere and being there. But as we kind of progressed, myself and my producer, we just kind of condensed everything. So we took out some of the additional people. We took out some of the, the party atmosphere. And we started to really kind of condense it into more of a business vibe. And then we were serious about wanting to create music and wanted to make, be able to put it out for people. So we just, every time that we go to the studio, we would try to just continue to be consistent and continue to make, music every time that we were in there. And then as time passed, it just kind of seemed like it was hitting every single week.
Well, I would imagine there has to be not that I don't think you're not having fun at all, but there has to be a element of looseness when you're creating like that. I mean, not that not every day is a good day, but and some days sometimes there are those days where it feels more like work than pleasure.
Right.
How do you find yourself balancing that on the days like, well, I don't want to do this, but I know that I have to because of the concurring effects of it.
Right. I often just think about the different gifts that I have, just like the different abilities. I'm not, I don't ever think that I'm better than anyone. I don't ever think I'm more talented than anyone. But I think I have specific gifts and specific talents, so I try to make sure that I use them. So that's one thing that kind of pushes me when I'm thinking about, maybe I should just chill or maybe I shouldn't do this. It's kind of like, what's the alternative? You just keep the things in your mind and you don't ever kind of push through and create them. So that's been one thing that I've kind of, worked with mentally. And then also creating as a form of therapy has kind of helped me to just being able to go through emotions and go through feelings and stuff specifically for the reason of trying to work through them. And then being able to create art or beauty out of whatever you're feeling has been kind of a thing that helps me move forward.
How long did it take you to really figure out that the creative process was not only therapeutic, but, you have all of this, you just have this potential inside of you. And there's a ton of wasted potential everywhere you go, right?
Right.
So to actually act on that and move forward with that, how long did that mindset take to develop? Because that's a very mature mindset. And we're all young, dumb, and stupid once. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
When did that? It was like a moment where it finally clicked for you. Was it over time? And
I guess it seemed like it was kind of over time. Throughout my life, I was always, like in band, like I said, in marching band, concert band, stuff like that. And I was in positions.
Did you get fulfillment for any of that? Because that's so different from what you're doing now.
I did. And I think that's one of the main things that kind of pushed me into wanting to perform and like wanting to be on stage and wanting to be like the main performer and wanting to make music with my name on it and like things like that. I think being in those spaces, because in marching band, I was the drum major. So I'm not just in band, but I'm getting a chance to actually lead the band. And it's it's an honor to do that. And then you're being able to perform music you enjoy, your friends, your family are in the crowd, things like that. So coming from the church, singing in the church when I'm really young, going into school, being a leader in the band settings, it kind of just navigated me because now, I'm out of school. What do I do? Okay, if I'm creating music, my goal is to be able to create it and present it in a way that's accepted by however many people are literally there at the time. So I'm really trying to just kind of push myself because it's kind of like, okay, what do you do next? Or like, what's the next goal that you're reaching for? So I guess that's one of the things that kind of drives me. I just want to see what I can do, see what I can.
Are there any
achieve.
subjects you get the most out of when you're writing about it for a song? Like, is there like subjects, topics, emotions, anything like that you find yourself getting more out of? Not necessarily like these are the best things I've ever written, but like two for them, one for me type. You know what I mean? It's like that was for me. Like that was a good one that I know I'm gonna love regardless of what reception is gonna be.
Right.
What topics kind of live in that area?
I would say relationships. Stuff about relationships more so here lately. Really, like I said, working through things from a therapeutic standpoint, being able to really write about emotions as they present themselves, coming up with concepts for beats based off of the emotion that I'm feeling so that when the song, is kind of formed, everything that I felt and everything that I wanted to portray is in the music, even if it's just the beat or if it's certain hits that are happening, everything that I'm wanting to portray is in that music at the time. So I think a lot of stuff about relationships, emotions when it comes to sadness, happiness, any type of, things that I'm working through, I think emotionally, but more so in the relationship department here lately.
Yeah. Do you come from because really, and obviously I haven't seen your sister either in God knows how long.
It's been a minute.
But I know that she took the route, the more like political, activist-based route. Do you have any like artistic other artistic streaks in your family, or are you really the first one that kind of?
Yeah, so all of them are. My whole family is musicians. All of them
okay.
are singers and musicians, but they primarily are church musicians.
Okay.
So I grew up in the church, gospel music primarily. So that's more so their genre.
Was there ever any pressure to like stay there
all the time,
stay in the...
all the time, consistently, right now as we speak. So it's no, like really, it's one of those things. I think it because I do have. I guess pressure is a good word for you, for lack of a better term. But because I have the pressure of knowing that that's, a part of my history, part of my background, it does sometimes detail how I write. I'll try to make sure that I'm saying things that are not too crazy or too wild, but I'm still getting my point across. Yeah. So it kind of helps me sharpen my skills as a writer. But then more so, I think it's really shown me the importance of utilizing all the different aspects of my background. So like the gospel aspects, the different things that I learned from being a church musician, I can use those things in performance aspects now. So.
I mean, that's a lot what Killer Mike does. He took
right,
a lot of his religious background and pumped that, and not only his solo stuff, the RTJ stuff. Right. And look how well it's worked out for him.
Right.
It just makes sense.
Right.
So you tell your family, you say, hey, I'm going to start doing this, and then the conversation comes that it's not going to be strictly religious.
Right.
Was that an easy one for you to navigate?
I feel like it's still being navigated constantly. It's my mom is just, you're not cussing, right? You're not, what are you saying? And it's like, no, typically no. Like, but I think just it's an interesting conversation to have to let them know that, we're performing, or like a performance is coming up, or things are happening, because it's like, okay, I told y'all that this is what I'm, interested in.
Right.
And like, I do want to like use my gifts toward this in some aspect. So it's like, if it goes well, I just, I want y'all to know that it's going well. Like, so it's an interesting conversation. I think I've been able to do thankfully I've been blessed to do a lot of great things in my life. So I think you're always proud of me. But for this specifically, it's been one of those journeys that you kind of just go on your own.
Yeah.
So I'm getting used to that, but I can't complain.
Well, the alternative would just be complete, like dismissiveness.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like that would be just 10 times worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? And how do you find yourself navigating the scene, the community, outside of the people you immediately work with on a regular basis? Because I've said it before with other rap, hip hop artists I've had on here, and I'll say it again. Like, I'm obviously not in that space. I don't exist there. I don't, frankly, it's just not in my purview.
Right.
But I have a couple of them on my Facebook.
Right.
And it looks like it's just high school down there.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you.
And then, what was it? You've heard of Robert Gibson, right? Blvd?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had, I think it was like last year. He had on his podcast, he had the head guy over at the Hustle on. I guess there was some nonsense about the hip hop awards and all that.
Okay.
This, that, and the other. I just bring all this up because I kind of, that's the only sides of it that I kind of see. Mm-hmm. How do you find yourself just navigating that type of negativity and that type of drama and that type of, it almost looks like clawing at each other. You know what I mean? How do you navigate all that type of stuff? 'Cause, it exists everywhere.
Right.
But, I think a lot of entertainment, and for whatever reason, comedy, in my opinion, comedy's leading the way in this.
Right.
But it's finally changing. The mindset's finally changing over that, hey, man, like, there's enough money to go around.
Right.
There's enough time on stage to go around. There's enough promotion to go around. The internet has made that infinite.
Right.
There's not a select amount of internet spots.
Right.
Like, we're out of, like, people advertise on TV, people advertise on radio, but, like, the days of, like, you could only get so many spots on that or so much advertisement on that standard marketing platform is gone. We can all help each other.
Right.
So, to bring it back, like, how do you find yourself navigating that and really, like, just, how do you navigate that?
I guess by what you were explaining exactly, going about everything with that mindset, like there's enough for all of us. And I think one of the things that I like to stand on, is if your product is a high quality product, it's going to shine through. So I think if you're approaching things from, with positive and pure intentions, going about it or trying to meet people and trying to make connections just because you're trying to make connections in the right way, I think typically that keeps you from the situations that you're describing that can often result in a lot of negativity. So one thing that I try to do is literally just try to go about things with pure intentions. Anyone that I've worked with is because I want to work with them, or like any, situation that, any performance that, we've gotten together for, any performance that we're working with other people for, collaborating for, that's something that we want to do. So it's never, we're hoping that we're never in positions where there's malicious intent. But that's one of the ways it's kind of kept me out of some of that stuff. Like you said, it's in every area and every type of competition facet. But I think primarily just trying to have a good time and trying to create the best product.
Yeah. Well, and that's what matters. And that's honestly a part of what you just said. That's the answer that I give to anyone who asks me like how I booked the show or how I like what guests do I choose. I tell them the same thing. Like I only have people on that I actually want to talk to.
Exactly.
I'm very selfish when it comes to this. I'm not apologetic about it. And whether this gets to a massive level one day or it just never goes anywhere, no matter how long I'm doing it, no one is ever going to tell me who I can or cannot have on.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to say no to people. Like, I've said no to people respectfully as I could when giving people negative news.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. I feel like in any interaction, but especially one that's so isolated like this, you can smell bullshit.
And it's necessary to be able to decipher the nonsense.
It's like I feel like, 'cause I'm not a good liar, dude, and I feel like if I had a guest on that I didn't want, but I was just doing it for whatever reason, I feel like they'd know sooner than later. Like in the first 5 to 15 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, he's just phoning it in. He's just that and the other.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's why I tell people a lot. It's like I'm very selfish about this. I choose and pick who I want, and I think that should like. Are there going to be business deals that people get into that I don't really want to work with this person, but they have connections that I need. They have this, this, and whatever it is. Like that definitely exists.
Right.
But especially when you're starting out and you're in the smaller stages of things, start out with the right intentions now. Don't start making poor connections from the jump.
Exactly.
Like it's funny because I look back over the last few years and I see like different directions I could have, like smaller, like at the time seemed like smaller steps. Like, oh yeah, I could have done that, or I could have done that, or even like with some guests that I've had, it would have been like, I'm glad I didn't have you in year one, because I would have handled that horribly.
Correct.
That would have gone so bad.
Right.
And so I'm glad this happened, but it happened at the right time. And there's other paths where I look, I'm like, man, if I got associated with that person, that would not have worked out well.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And I think a lot of things has been happening in the music space for me like that specifically. Like I said, like the performances we got in July or in June, had those happen 4 years ago or had the opportunity presented itself, we may not have been prepared. Or no, we would not have been prepared. Yeah. Like we wouldn't have been able to perform at the level that we did. So kind of in that same way, if you're had you met someone before, had some situation presented itself before, you may have handled it differently. So I hear what you're saying with that.
I feel like there are just maybe not like, well, there are a lot. I imagine there are a lot less like live opportunities in the music here, regardless of the genre.
Right.
But I feel like it is just from the outside looking in, it just looks so unforgiving.
Yeah.
It is. You know which, because I tell this to a lot of the musician people that I've had on, and I think for the most part they all agree, it's extremely challenging to build a good reputation,
right,
and to build a good mutual respect, whether it's between you and other artists, you and venues, you and promoters, whatever it is. It's so hard to build that respect and that rapport and that reputation that it can eventually become universal. It's very easy to break it, and it can break at any time,
right,
whether you intended it to or not.
Correct.
And so if you did get like some giant, like the giant Juneteenth show that you did 2 years in, a year and a half in,
right,
and that was your lasting impression,
right. Right.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting how all that tends to work out when you're writing your music. How far into the process do you, or like the song creation process, maybe it isn't writing, maybe it's not, where like it kind of clicks in your head, like, okay, this is a project that I can stick with. Like this is actually going to end up into a song. Like how long does that usually take for you?
I guess it typically varies, but I guess I would say,
Or like stages wise, I think that's a better way to word it.
yeah. So because I guess I've produced some of the beats that I've written to, and then I've had my producer produce some of the beats. So the way that it'll go, if he'll produce, he'll just send it to me. He'll typically just send me a lot of beats, and then maybe about an hour into listening to the one that gets chosen, I'll typically know. Here lately, I've the chorus and the hook will come first, or at least like the rhythms and the melodies for that.
It's like where you want to get comes first, not how do I get there.
Exactly. So once I'm able to kind of get that, then I know, okay, I can formulate the rest of the song, because the most beefy portion of it has kind of already been created. When I'm creating or producing beats, it typically will happen while I'm producing the beat. Like I said, if I'm producing a beat, I want it to be specific to how I'm feeling. So during the actual production of the beat, I'll kind of know, like, okay, this is where I want it to go. Like, this is how I want it to function. And that's typically how it happens. It'll take about an hour to like at least know that I want to stick with this one, and kind of see it through. From that process, a few days may go by or whatever. The writing process kind of varies, but within about an hour, I know if I'm really rocking with the beat and I want to try to pursue it.
Interesting. And not just in that initial production stage, but in general, how much are you concerned with how this is going to translate live?
More so now, a little bit more. I think before, the focus was just getting music out on the platform and just making sure that people had something to play in their phone. Especially, we were trying to make sure that things looked professional, so making sure that I had like the Spotify page and Apple Music page, so that if people are typing my name in, stuff looks professional. There's a visual and there's a professional aspect to it. So that was the main focus for a decent amount of time, just being consistent with providing people with the music in their phone. But now, I think most of the music that I've already created is pretty easily crafted into instrumental music. But I think more so now, we're looking at really cultivating sound specific to live performances.
Interesting.
So that we can really just, kind of attack it from a higher level and like really create experiences on purpose.
Interesting. No, that's a good way to look at it. Because I mean, even some of my favorite artists, there are songs that I love.
Yeah.
And it's like, how the fuck is that ever going to translate live?
Right.
And because of how important you stated that live music is, not only just in general, but to your career where it's at right now,
Right.
It makes sense that you'd be tuning a lot of yourself. Like, okay, well, if they happen, I'd imagine right now one of the last things you'd want is for people to gravitate towards a song that you have on streaming, and then you can't deliver that.
Right.
Not even from a talent wise, just from a production level wise.
Right.
Like, we can't recreate live what we did here, no matter how good it is. Or,
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a good way to put it. When you are live, and have you felt like because it's funny, I'll watch like newer bands when they're playing and they get on stage and they're nervous and they're whatever, and they're kind of like, they slowly start to kind of open up during the set. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is there anything like that for you when you're playing on stage, or are you just like, you're locked in, you know what you're doing? I mean, for to the best of your ability, you're in the right mindset, and you're able to. Because I imagine too, like, and I see this with new comics, and I see this with new artists too, where they play to the people in front of them. Mm-hmm. It's like, you got to play to the back of the room.
Right.
You got to cover everybody.
Right.
Do all those kind of mental checks and that, like, hey, am I doing this right? Did I move this way properly? Am I presenting myself properly? Was that something that always kind of hit you when you were getting on stage, or is it like, oh man, out of the, like, let's say there's 8 things on a mental checklist, I did 4 of those tonight.
Yeah.
Fuck. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Was it a formulation, or was like, but like you're one of those people who get on stage and like go to work?
Yeah, I think
And which of those are most important to you, like on stage?
I guess I do kind of go through the mental check. I think a lot of times during the performance, I'll make sure that I'm doing certain things, you know. And I've studied a lot of performers. I've studied the way that they work the stages. I've studied the way that they work crowds. I've studied the way that the music kind of dictates what they do, or dictates which portion of the song to go to, you know, things like that. So I spend a lot of time actually looking at performers on stage. So when I'm up there, I do kind of at least try to check in with myself, just kind of remind myself of some of the different things that I'm supposed to do, or different things that I could be doing. It didn't start like that though. I think more so now I've really started to like be cognizant about making those decisions. When I was a kid though, it was just kind of, you know, you get up there and you sing because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So I think understanding that, okay, I have the ability to at least sing in front of the crowd. Now I'm really trying to make sure that all the technical aspects are sharp.
What type of venue? I feel like I word this properly. What type of venue do you think you've performed in the most? Like the more like brewery, bar, like you did a thing at 505, right? Not locker,
Food hall. Yeah, I would say those type of venues. In fact, I have a show at 505 on the 19th of January. So that should be a pretty good opportunity for anyone who wants to come out. But
and when you have these, I gotta ask too, when you have these type of shows at these type of venues, I mean, is the venue changing its layout to fit the performance at least? Or because I'd imagine it's hard enough to be doing a art form somewhere that typically isn't built to host it.
Right.
You know, and so are they like changing the venue around for you? Are they telling people like, hey, you're not just coming in to have dinner tonight, motherfucker? Like this is a, you know,
right? They're letting you know what the vibe is going to be. No, yeah. Shout out to 505 because they actually do a really good job of that. They have a stage that they put, you know, in place, and then the area is cleared for us and everything. They have a sound guy that works with us, so it's real professional over there. We've performed over there twice already. This will be the third time, so we're you know, trying to actually work connections and get into places consistently. But typically, it seems like a lot of places are not prepared for the whole band. I think because of kind of the history of performances here, a lot of performances, or I guess R&B and hip hop performances, have tracks or have very minimal instrumentation that's live. So we're definitely trying to provide a new experience in those arenas, and then kind of get venues ready to receive that type of music.
And I would imagine that's a big incentive for unconventional or smaller venues, because they think, oh, they want to do a rap show. Okay, well, they just bring like audio equipment and maybe a laptop. I think we'll be okay. And then you guys show up and say, hey, we're here to play music.
right. And it turns into like a legitimate tiny desk experience, and it's a totally different. So it's been cool to kind of, you know, navigate that space and like see people like, oh, okay, we may need more equipment or whatever the case may be, but we've definitely been received in a positive way so far.
Yeah, and speaking of tiny desks, that's why I am so happy that Bands of Enchantment is a thing here. I think that is a huge plus in the music community here, because not only are they televised on PBS and I think they're on like Tubi or some shit. Yeah. But I mean, that is just a bigger added and funded, sponsored platform. I think that a lot of other like mid-sized cities don't really have. And quite frankly, I'm shocked we have it here in New Mexico.
I was surprised when I heard about it, because the second event that we played at 505 was like a pre-event for Bands of Enchantment, and I believe this event on the 19th is also like a pre-event for us. So it's been cool to be connected and be able to meet some of the different individuals that are a part of it. But it's definitely one of those things that I think highlights all the stuff that we have going on here. You know, we have so many individuals that are talented and that are able to create at a high level. So it is nice to get some of that national exposure.
Yeah, and again, a rising tide is going to raise all ships.
Right.
And all it takes is one, maybe two, of whoever's in that community, right? That tight-knit community of the upper echelon. These guys have been doing it for a while. They're the most professional. They show up. They deliver a great product, that type of shit.
Right.
takes one or two of you,
right,
to whatever make it means,
right,
or to break,
right,
whatever the fuck that
right,
means.
exactly.
It takes one or two of you, and it's like, hey, we're doing a show over here. We need an opening band.
Right.
Get on the bus. Get in the truck. We're going.
And that's all it takes. And I guess that's the approaching it from that standpoint. Like we want to create a high product because we have the ability to create a high product. If at that moment we get that call, we've been working and practicing and perfecting the product. So we're not, oh, how do we get it done? No, we know how to get it done. If SNL was to hit us up, or if whatever the case may be, because we have all these discussions about what we want. But if one of those things was to happen, are we prepared? Have we practiced? Do we have any type of professional aspect or professional way to go about presenting ourselves to whoever we're trying to present ourselves to? So it's definitely been one of those things where it's like, we know we can do it, so we have to try to do it at the best of our ability.
And you never know what can happen. Like there was a handful of musicians here that I'm friends with that had the opportunity, I think it was like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, to do music for ESPN and shit.
Right.
And it's like, now granted, did it blow them up and make them hyper famous? No. But they told me off camera what that paycheck was.
It's an opportunity.
And I was like, fuck.
You see what I'm saying? And I guess that's the thing. It's like like you said, the version of make it. Like when you're first getting into any type of music, typically you're always trying to, I want to be famous, or I want to. But it's like when you're looking at opportunities like that, or options like that, or literally just being able to perform and not have to do anything else because that pays your bills. If that's what you want to do, or if just performing at small places or whatever, if that's what you're looking for, then you've made it. I think a lot of times artists, musicians specifically, will go into it thinking of like the highest, I want to be, the Drakes and the Beyoncés, and it's like a lot of times the best portion of it comes from the small venues. The best portion of it comes from the opportunities like that, where nobody really knows how much you got paid, but you're good and you were able to do something that you enjoyed. So I think looking for opportunities like that and looking for it just to be a positive experience has really kind of kept us going.
Well, and then going into anything with the idea that you're going to make money, and the idea that, that's with, okay, obviously, with most people in artistic endeavors, they want to eventually get paid, compensated for what they're doing.
Right.
Like, that's understandable. But to have that be the driving force, was like, oh, I see those, like, you just named. I see the millions. I want the millions. I can sing and dance. It's like, well, probably not.
Right.
Exactly. B, I've had my Bluetooth randomly disconnect in my car, and I hear myself.
I've heard myself as well.
I'm like, whoa, wow, really?
Maybe not.
All right, there is a God. All right, he's letting me know to, you know what I mean? So there is that. But let's say you are that good,
right?
And then, but your motivation and the developed discipline behind it is not to, accentuate and to really compound on the abilities you do have.
Right.
It's to just, how do I get money fast? How do I take these shortcuts, or how do I do whatever? It's like, well, first of all, that sounds awful, like going down the path of stealing other people's shit.
Correct.
A. And then B, it's like you're going to burn yourself out.
Short-lived.
It's going to be you're going to get unmotivated and undisciplined so fast because, I mean, it's just not a thing.
Right. You're not doing it because you love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. And so when you find yourself networking and you're meeting people and all that kind of stuff, and you're getting on these different shows and you're being able to expose yourself more, like, are there like times where, as like you're growing in popularity, are there times where you have to keep yourself in check? It's like, okay, like this is a good bump.
Yeah.
But don't let it. We're still like, we know where you are.
Right.
Take pride in how far you've come, but know where you are. Do you find yourself doing that to keep yourself keep your mental space, on track?
Literally all the time. I have to all the time. Just because it's easy, especially, out here, when that type of music is not like the biggest thing. It's like, if you're recognized for that type of thing, you kind of feel like an anomaly in a lot of respects. And then even out here in any type of facet, there's a lot of times if your name is called, or if you're seen as like you're doing something cool, a lot of times you can feel like you're separated, or you can feel like you're, doing something that other people are not doing. But I think it is very important to continue to remind yourself of where you are, and then to continue to remind yourself that a lot of where you are is not only because of you. So it's like I have to continue to remind myself of that. None of the stuff that I'm doing, I really could have done by myself. So I can't ever just say like, oh, I did it all and I deserve, like, because I don't. And if I really look at what's happening, or if I really look at how I've been able to progress, I have a whole lot of people that I can thank for being there with me every step of the way.
Well, and 99% of the time, anyone that says that they are a self-made person is
Right.
a fucking liar.
Right.
There is no way.
Right.
Like, that's just not how shit works.
Right.
What is your thought process, your theory on if and when to put out an album? And the reason why I ask this is because a buddy of mine, he's one of the frontmen for the Slums of Harvard. We were having this conversation.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, they're awesome. And we were talking about, and I think he heard this quote or this like statement or whatever. I think it's like from Bruno Mars or Anderson .Paak, maybe one of the two. And basically what they were saying was, when you're starting out with music, you should be putting out, or then in general, you should be putting out albums when it matters. And a lot of the initial growth and a lot of the like the grassroots movement before the pop happens, before the whatever happens for you, where people really, like a large amount of people really start giving a shit about your music. Up until that point, it's singles, maybe an EP, but you know, it's just singles here and there.
Right.
But then another argument that I've heard is that it's a lot more challenging, but a lot more artists they get satisfaction out of creating albums that all have themes and stories. And, you know what I mean? It's a whole, like you're saying, an experience, right? With that live, but an experience of listening to a full album, and they find more gratification doing that.
Right.
So where do you find yourself in those multiple trains of thought?
I'm more of the former. Definitely more so, I think, the single, just like music aspect. I think albums or even EPs, to me, I like to craft them, and I like to really try to put thought and intention into them. So singles give me an opportunity to create music. If I think it's a good song, I can just put it out at that point. But I definitely think I lean a little more toward doing singles and then doing live performances. I think for me personally, when that time comes where there's a large amount of people that are waiting for music to drop, an album would make more sense for me.
Yeah.
But I think the way that I kind of push music makes more sense to go from a single and then live performance standpoint. I feel like it can definitely work both ways. I have a lot of friends that create albums and put those out, and they get a lot of, great feedback from that. So I guess it just kind of depends on the musician. But me personally, I think for right now, we've been doing a lot of singles. I do want to, or I am working on an album. So that's definitely something that we're pushing forward. But while that's being crafted, we have a lot of singles that are ready to just kind of throw out.
If there are any, how many opportunities are there for musicians in your genre to be able to put on their own shows? And I just ask that because that's starting to happen little and little more and more on the comedy side of things. But again, and I think post-COVID, a lot of different venues have really been stepping up for the live entertainment.
Right.
In general, there's live entertainment. There's a lot more breweries that weren't doing it beforehand.
Right.
And there's a lot more just spaces in general that are offering like that. Are there a lot of opportunities for that in your space? And if there is that something you ever put thought to?
I would say there are growing opportunities. I know that typically from what I've experienced, just like a simple conversation with the individuals that own the establishments has allowed us to perform or to curate shows, I guess. The struggle we're finding is getting people to the shows. So really getting people to the venues specifically for the shows. We've been, it has been positive, and we've had growing amounts of crowds, but a lot of times if it's a food hall, they're there for the food. And then they hear us, and it's a good response or whatever, and they stay, but they're not coming for our performance specifically. So it's of course, we have to do a good job so that they'll stay. And that's a great way to polish yourself, polish the craft. It's great. But we are trying to really move into having people pull up specifically for the performance.
Well, that's a rough crowd to go and perform for.
You know what I'm saying? So we've been in the kind of downtown area, Launchpad. We did a few shows there.
Which is a dope venue.
Incredible venue. And that was probably one of my favorite shows that we performed.
I'm on this giant one-liner madness, and they're doing on Sunday night, and I am both excited and terrified of doing stand-up at Launchpad.
It's great. I think you'll enjoy yourself.
Holy
it's great.
fuck.
It feels there's so much energy up there on the stage. It's incredible. It's incredible. But we had one of the best performances that we've ever had, and we had maybe 50 people there, which is a solid amount. But we're trying to actually really grow people for those performances. But with that, we're also trying to get other artists on those shows too. So, not just having one specific style, but somewhat similar styles that are represented there, a few different bands, and then hopefully all of those different groups can kind of bring their people.
Right. And especially for the growing artists, that's why like places like Launchpad and like El Rey and Sunshine are really, leading the way and all that, because they are a venue that have a built-in respect with like because I love going to Launchpad.
Right.
So if you're playing at Launchpad, I'd like to think you're decent.
Right.
Are there, but from an artist standpoint, because again, the goal should be wherever you're at, you say, hey, I'm in Memphis, I'm in Dallas, I'm in Tampa, I'm wherever I am, come to a show, and you have enough people to show up on a however long notice.
Right.
But shrinking that down to Albuquerque, what promotion ideas have shown any traction for you guys? Because, I mean, that is a question that I've asked a lot of people that are both entertainers, promoters, I've on and off the podcast, like, how the fuck do you promote shows in Albuquerque that aren't these massive ones?
Right.
Because until I started doing this podcast, I had no idea about entertainment anywhere on the local level.
Right.
I knew what was going on like at Sleta. I knew what was happening at Sunshine, maybe Launchpad. But it's how do you push out that kind of stuff? How do you? Is it only social media? Is it in person? Fucking throwing up flyers in places? Where do you find traction in that?
Yeah, so it's been a lot of old school pounding the pavement here lately. More so just because of kind of what you said, when you have bigger venues that have the ability to market, they market. So that's kind of what we're learning, is essentially that we have to really get in people's face in order for them to see us. I think direct messages have been helpful. Like, we'll create a flyer, they'll actually send it to people. We post things on social media. But one thing I think we're definitely going to start working on this year is really like putting flyers up physically in places, specifically at some of the different venues that we have performed at. For instance, 505, since we've performed there, if we have another thing at Launchpad, we can put up some flyers at 505, and they can, route some people over there to see that performance. But there's going to be a lot of that just because we're kind of starting from the ground up, essentially. It's easy to kind of get music in people's hands, but in order to really get them to the performance, you have to be a little more personable. So that's the portion that I'm really working to kind of push this year. I think it's it's a challenge aspect for me because I'm typically pretty quiet, like out of the way.
Yeah.
Like I'm cool with just like creating, like I'll perform and I'm out the way. So.
Well, you find that a lot in introverts where they like being by themselves, but they can do in front of large audiences.
Right.
That large audience almost becomes one. And it's not like when you're on stage, you can work the crowd, you can interact, but you're not necessarily, or you're not getting off the stage and having a conversation with 3 people at once, 4 people at once. You're doing it as a collective, and it gets so fucking bright on a stage.
It's incredible.
You can't see most people anyway.
So you're zoned.
So if you think your favorite artist is waving and smiling at you,
they're probably not.
I bet you they're not.
They're probably not. They're probably not. And I think that's one of those, when you realize that as an artist, that's when you can go up there and you can talk to the crowd and you can say whatever because you're not looking at one person. And, if you are, that's cool. And a lot of, the best artists will sometimes zero in and be able to kind of do a lot with the crowd. But a lot of times, especially when you kind of, like you said, when you start that performance, you're just there. You can't see the people that are there, so you're just kind of going through what you've gone over in rehearsals a lot of times. your body just jumps into that mode and you start to perform like you've rehearsed.
It's muscle memory.
And kind of halfway through maybe the first song or whatever, and then you start to really kick it up, and that's when you maybe will start to, at least for me, you'll start to kind of zone in. But a lot of that time you're just, you're working what you've rehearsed already. Yeah. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm intentional about being personable with presenting people with the flyers, presenting people with the information, presenting people with the opportunities to come and see us, so that when we do what we rehearsed, they're able to see a really high caliber product.
One of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten is from Robert Gibson. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got from him is he goes, I always show up early to my shows to say thank you to people for being here and showing up to the show, and I always stay late to say thank you for being here, have a good night, get home safe.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get a return customer, right. And that's how you build relationships with fans, and they're more likely to go share your stuff. They're more likely to tell you, hey, you got to fucking check this guy out. He's a great rapper. You got to check this guy there or this band out. They're a great whatever. Mm-hmm. And being able to not be above the people that came to see you, because you're not. Exactly. If anything, you're at that same level, if not lower, because
you're the entertainment. You're there to serve, really. Yes. And if you're serving correctly, you need to be grateful that they stayed and watched, the product that you presented.
Because no matter how much money they're giving, if they are giving any, whether it's like a free show and they're just paying for the food and drinks, or it is like a cover show or whatever, ultimately they're giving their time.
Right.
They're giving their time and their energy. It's like, okay, they could have been anywhere else tonight, but they decided to go see you.
Right.
Go make it worth it.
Right.
Because I've been to shows that cost me $10 and $5 that I fucking loved. Exactly. And I've been to shows that have cost me upwards of $100. And I was like, that
disappointed.
That was all right. Whatever. It's what you build across all of that means the most. So along with the promotion aspect, and I'm glad you kind of leaned more into the personalized section of that. I think it's a good place to close out for challenges for yourself. Aside from promotion and getting the asses in seats aspect taken care of, what other goals, what other challenges do you foresee happening in the near future that you plan on overcoming?
Challenges for me, I think, would definitely be just all the professional aspects that come with it, making sure everything is polished, making sure, especially when we're talking about choreography, I really do want to add intentional choreography to like videos, and then live performances, so that we really can take it from just, the lower level musical performance and music videos to really like the higher level R&B musical performances.
Right.
I think that definitely kind of bridges that gap. But yeah, just intentionality and, overcoming that is just being specific about things, taking every day and like being intentional about the different things that we want to achieve, or the different things that I would like to do for that specific song or video or whatever it is, like being intentional and being on purpose about everything, and then trying to see those things through. And then just a few goals is just performing. I definitely want to perform as often as possible. We've been looking at some different venues like the Wine Festival, some stuff at the State Fair, things like that. But we're also really trying to get out of state. So trying to make a few trips down to Texas and Colorado, trying to do a few live performances there. So we got some of that stuff in the works. But really, performances, that's really what we want to work on this year.
That's kick ass, dude. And then, one more question I have before we close out. I saw that you did an interview with New Mexico Entertainment, Entertainment, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So are you doing anything involved with them, and are you doing anything involved? Because I know like the hip hop community has their awards ceremony coming up, which turned out to be like, for all the faults that I heard, it turned out to be a mostly professional, like very like orchestrated event.
I really was surprised because I hadn't heard about it. So I got nominated last year. I didn't know anything about the awards though. So from that nomination, I was kind of able to learn about what it was. I went to the actual awards and I was really surprised. It was actually really cool. It was around the same time as the Grammys, I think, or some other award show. So I had seen that on TV, and then to actually go to Santa Fe and be a part of that award show was really cool. I thought it was professional. I thought it was a very cool experience to kind of be a part of. So I'm looking forward to this year. That award show happens on the 20th. I got another nomination this year, a few of them, and then we're supposed to be performing live for that. So we're excited.
And when is that happening again?
The 20th of January. I believe it's from 5 to 8 at the Lensick Theater in Santa Fe.
Cool.
And then we have a performance on the 19th at 505 Central Food Hall on Central. That is on the 19th from 4 to 6 prior to the Bands of Enchantment event.
Nice. And where can people find not only your music, but where can they find you on social media?
You can find all my music at MikeBaty on all streaming platforms. So that's Mike Baty. And then my Instagram is BAE.TEA_Baty_. So for anyone, people say it wrong, so I had to split it up to kind of help them learn how to say it correctly. But yeah, it works out. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about all the different opportunities that are coming my way. So I'm hoping that I can be able to continue to create.
You're going to, man. There's a level of how do I put this? There's a level of creative, genuine fuel that I see, whether it's I listen to your stuff or I see your social media, like, oh, like this guy, he takes it seriously. Like he's not playing around. He's not just doing it for his social life.
I appreciate that.
He just want to be a SoundCloud rapper.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's taking it seriously and he's being as professional as his experiences allow him to be.
Right.
And and they both, in theory, they should both be growing, parallel. Right. And it seems that it is, man. And on a more personal note, this is a blast from the fucking past.
Yeah, this is crazy. It's been so cool because I feel like the last time we really spoke was really in middle school.
Yeah,
like it was really in middle school. So it's been insane. It's been insane.
It's cool as shit, man. It's awesome seeing everything that you're doing and all
You too.
all the progress you've made and just everything to hear about everything you have coming up. It's cool as shit, man.
Yeah,
it's really awesome.
Appreciate the opportunity, man. Appreciate your time,
dude. Thank you for coming and doing this. And likewise, I know you're busy. Obviously. You're a busy guy.
Oh, man.
So thank you for spending about an hour or so with me.
Yeah, man. No problem.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
You.